process of making a selection and looking at a bunch of different selections tools. And then we looked at another video on how to use a refined edge. On this video, what we are going to look at is doing another kind of quick selection rather than a longer arduous process, and how to combine the two silhouetted images together properly. So I'm going to just use the quick selection tool and just showing you how quick it actually can be with the correct image. So I am going to choose just to kind of drag around. I'm in the selection, quick selection tool, which again lives about fourth item down on your toolbar, and just kind of going through really quickly with a 70-point brush. Now that's going to depend on your file size, because a 70-point brush is going to seem small on this particular image, but if you had a smaller file, perhaps not. Now in here, I might need to use a much smaller brush. I'm using the bracket keys to make the brush smaller, and now I'm using the option key to go into the subtractive mode, and still didn't quite get what I was looking for. So just kind of doing an additive mode. I'm going back and forth between these two. Just kind of click, click. There we go. So I think that's pretty good for what we're trying to do as far as a demo. Again, if I were probably be a little bit more particular if I were doing this for myself. So I'm going to go into the refined edge now. We're going to have a nice preview there. Go to Smart Radius, clean it up a touch, smooth it, feather it just slightly. And I do want to decontaminate colors for sure. Take it up in different percentages. Got a couple areas that I don't like. High contrast, maybe go in just a touch. And now I'm going to go in with my tool and just try to clean up a few areas. This area is where I'm going to join to the elephant, so I'm not too worried about that. So I'm going to clean in here. A few areas that were a little rough since our selection was very rough. So now I'm going to do new layer with layer mask. That all looks pretty good to me. I might increase my radius just a hair, 1.4, and click OK. Now, how do I get this layer into my background layer? There's a number of different ways that I can do this. The way that I find to be the easiest way is go to Arrange, and you can either do a vertical tile or a horizontal tile, so you can see both images. And I am literally going to grab this layer and I'm going to drop it onto the elephant layer. Now if I look, I'm going to undock these. I'm just going to tab them again just by simply dragging that tab over. Now you can see that I have my original background, I have my elephant and the mask, and I have my butterfly wing or my butterfly and its layer mask as well. So from here what I can do is hit Control T to get to Edit Transform, or you can go to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm just going to rotate this, try to move it into place. If you hold the Shift key down, you can constrain proportions and increase and decrease size. You can distort it and flip it holding down the Alt key. I'm going to Control Z because I didn't really want to do that. With Command, I can distort specific corners and change the perspective of it, which I actually might leave that. Again, one thing that you need to remember about the transform tool is that it gives you a very rough preview. So once I hit enter, it's going to look much more natural and less pixelated and kind of chunky. Just getting in there and taking a look at it. But you can see that versus that. Oops, going backwards. I think I lost it. Let's step. Oh, I went back too far. That's okay. We'll do Control T again and rotate it. And I think I'm going to lose the distortion that I did anyway. I wasn't liking that. Sometimes it just warps the pixels a little bit too much. So there we go. Double click. Now from here, a couple things that I want to do. I want to blend this area in to the to my elephant, so it looks like it's joined, and I want to do it in kind of a gradient and a gradual level. And I also want to change this into kind of a black and white sepia. And I'm going to do that with an adjustment layer. So my adjustment layers are down here. And I want to choose this one down here that calls for black and white. And so I'm going to add that. And now that's going to apply to everything underneath. The adjustment layer is going to apply to every layer underneath of it. Now there are certain cases where you might want it to clip to a specific layer, like if I just wanted to change the wings to black and white and not necessarily the elephant, but I don't want to do that, so I'm going to edit undo. I want to attach the whole thing. But notice all you do to do that is create with your pen, with your cursor, holding down the Alt key, you just go in between, you hover over that line in between the two layers that you want to affect, and you just click in between and then they'll clip it. And I just edit undo. And then, so from here, with this black and white properties, you can adjust all the individual color layers. So if you want to brighten up your reds and, you know, decrease your yellows, increase your greens. Some of them, if there's not a lot of green or cyan, you might not see the adjustment as much. And blues and magenta, not seeing quite as much of adjustment there. Definitely with the yellows and the red, you'll see that. So it allows you to adjust the different filtration there. Okay, now if I ever want to get back to that, I just double click on that icon and it'll pop right up. Again, from here, what I also can do is, if I wanted to add a sepia effect, there's a bunch of different ways to do a sepia effect. One of them being your photo filters. They actually have a sepia tone filter. What I don't like about this is, as I don't think it looks like a true sepia to me. I don't really, and it's only affecting. It's affecting the whole value scale more than I would like, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to actually delete, I'm going to delete this layer, and I'll show you the way that I personally like to do it. And I go to the adjustment layers and I actually go to curves, and instead of affecting the RGB, I go to red. And just in my midtones, I increase my red just a hair. Sometimes I even add another point and drag that down. So I'm not affecting my highlight areas, which is true to a true sepia, because a sepia only affects where the silver halide crystals have been exposed, and that doesn't happen in the white areas of the print. So your white areas will not have any tone to them in a true sepia. So you definitely want to hold that true. And I'm going to bring that down in the blue as well, adding a little bit of yellow. And I can always bump up my highlights. I might have gone a little bit too far on my reds. I might bring that just up in the whites, just a hair, because it's looking a little bit too brassy in the whites and a little bit too cold. So there we go. So that's a truer sepia tone. Now I need to make sure that I'm in the right layer because I want to start working here on how this wing is joining to the elephant. So I'm going to actually click on the background copy, and you can rename these very simply. If I want to put this and call it wings is fine. Just double click on the name and then type in what you like and hit enter. So I'm here on the wings layer, and now I'm going to click and make sure that I'm working in the layer mask. I'm going to go over here to my brush tool or hit B for brush. And I am going to start masking out part of this with a much larger brush. And I can go up to maybe 90 to 100. Again, I like using the bracket keys because I get a visual, oops, that doesn't work here when you're in the actual tool panel. But I am going to take my hardness down all the way to 0 because I wanted a nice soft brush. So, but I do like using the bracket keys to increase the size because you get a visual representation of that. Now, I'm at 100% on my erasing that I'm doing, and that's not really where I want to be. I want to take it down probably to maybe, start off, we're going to do it incrementally. So we're going to start off at about 50%. And I'm going to click around. Okay, so now I did go a little bit further than I wanted, so I'm going to go back and I'm just kind of painting in with the white. And I'm going to take my opacity back down to about 20%. I'm going to hit the X key. If you're not comfortable using keyboard commands, you can always hit this little double-headed arrow right here in the corner and switch your foreground and background layer or color, and then you can just slightly tap here and we can get in closer to really see what we're doing. Again, working closely is critical. So I'm not really liking up here, going back to the brush tool, I'm not really liking up here how transparent it is, so I am going to paint that back in. Again, hitting the X key to switch back to the white because I want to paint it back in, and I'm going to decrease the size of my brush and paint it right here. Get a little bit more texture in these areas, so I want to be a little more precise. And then I'm going to switch back to the black. I'm going to decrease down to 10%. And then maybe even decrease the size of my brush just a touch. Sorry, I hit the P for a second. And then just kind of paint that in. Excuse me, blessing myself. All right, so here we go. Now, really I can see at this point, I can even go over here, kind of soften these. The poor little butterfly had some tattered wings in certain areas. So what I'd like to do now is I'm not liking how this highlight is coming through. It's not natural. You wouldn't have a highlight there if you had a big wing coming off, or you would have a highlight on the wing. So here what I'm going to do is take that and I'm going to rotate this and bring it down. Oops. Go back to Control T. I'm going to rotate it and bring it down. I might even decrease the size just a touch and rotate it and bring it in. And I can also see that I've got some areas that didn't get masked out very well, and I've got to work on those. And keep rotating it just a touch. Oops, I stretched it a touch here, but we'll leave it like that. Double click. Then I'm going to go in here with 100%, make sure that I have black, brush. I'm going to take this up to 100%, and I am going to erase anything in here that looks like a weird halo. Just like that. Okay, looking a little bit better. Now, at this point, if we were to, I could always go and replicate this wing. So if I wanted to do my second wing, I can do that very easily just by hitting Alt and dragging that down, and see the double-headed arrow with the black and white arrow. That's the icon that you're looking for, and then you just drop it and it makes a copy of it. And I can name this one back wing. Now, to truly be a back wing, it needs to be behind. So with this selected, make sure the back wing is selected. I'm going to drag that underneath the elephant, and then I'm going to pull it out and down, maybe hit Control T, decrease the size of it, maybe slightly change the angle. So, and hit Enter. And there you go. At this point, we could place a new image, a new photograph, and put it into a different space. But that is the beginnings of how you create a composite image.